Hi, my name is Pastor Russell Mullenberg, and this is Eat This Word, a weekly program where I serve up bite-sized bits of Bible. Our bite-sized bit today comes from Colossians chapter 1. It's actually six verses, Colossians 15 through 20, Colossians 1, 15 through 20. Here's what it says. It says, "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. Whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. And he's before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he's the head of the body, the church. He's the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross." So, as we begin this new year 2022, the question I'm asking is, who is this? Who is Jesus? And this is one of the great passages for telling us who Jesus is, this cosmic look at Jesus as he exists now in heaven. And the emphasis is on his supremacy, as we see there at the end of verse 18, his preeminence. Jesus is first. We're going to go through these verses in three parts, and today I want to talk about how Jesus is first over creation. So we're going to focus on just verses 15 through 17 today. There is a lot here. Every phrase is a rich vein of theological knowledge, and so I'm going to go phrase by phrase and just see what we can mine out of each one. So we begin at the beginning. The Son is the image of the invisible God. Do you want to know what God is like? Look at Jesus. Everything Jesus is, that's what God is. And so the whole idea of Jesus being born into our world is that he comes to represent, to be the presence of God in the world. And so as you read the stories of Jesus and you hear stories about what Jesus is like, you hear Jesus welcomes little children, well, that needs to be part of your picture of God. God welcomes the little children. When you see Jesus becoming angry about injustice and hypocrisy, and then that needs to be part of your picture of God, that he becomes angry at injustice and hypocrisy. When you see Jesus welcoming and blessing those who are sick, those who are outcast, reaching out to the marginalized, that needs to be part of your picture of God. He reaches out to those who are on the outskirts. Jesus, the Son, is the image of the invisible God. He's the firstborn over all creation. We have to be careful here, because that idea of being born might give us the impression that, well, Jesus is part of creation. Like he's the first thing God created. He's the first of creation. And that would be a terrible error. That's a heresy known as Arianism, this idea that Jesus maybe is more than us, but a little less than God. That's not what this verse is teaching. Rather, that expression, the firstborn, has to do with rights, inheritance, ownership. The idea, of course, is that the firstborn in a family, the law of primogeniture, that the oldest will inherit, that the firstborn is the one who has a claim on his father's world. And so that, of course, is what's being said here about Jesus. As the firstborn over creation, he's the owner of all creation. He's the one. He's not a created being. He's the one in whom and by whom and through whom all things were created. But he has ownership rights. He has claims over this world that he's created. So verse 16, "For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him." It all belongs to him. We see here at least four categories of things that were created, things that belong to creation. We can break it down to two categories, if you will. So we can talk about earth, visible, the things that you can see, feel, and touch, everything that you can handle in your hands or see with your eyes, everything that you stub your toe against, the real things of creation. They were created by him and through him and for him. And so what this means is that creation, there's nothing about creation that is inherently good or bad, that it all comes from his hand. And so things like alcohol or wine, he made that. And there's nothing necessarily bad about it. We use it in bad ways. We can abuse it and misuse it, but there's nothing inherently bad about that. Or sexual things, that sex was God's idea. He created it. There's nothing inherently bad about it. We've twisted it, and we do a lot of things that are wrong with it, but creation itself, it comes from Jesus, and it is he is head over it. He is firstborn over it. But again, then it talks about as well things in heaven, things invisible. So there are also things in creation that we can't see. There are principles like gravity and the air that we breathe. But I think more than that, this is talking about a spiritual world. A world that isn't always visible to our eyes, a world of angels and demons. And this is asserting that Jesus is the creator and Jesus is the head over those things as well. I'm not the kind of guy who sees an angel in every happenstance. I'm not a guy who sees a demon behind every rock, but that doesn't mean those things don't exist. They are real. Paul talks about them often. In fact, the next category, these thrones or powers, rulers or authorities, are sort of Paul's category for the spiritual opposition that comes against Jesus and the gospel. Talks about in Ephesians 6 when he says we need to put on the armor of God to fight against those influences. And so these things are real, they exist, but the important thing here, the assertion being made here, is that Jesus is above them. Jesus has created them. So these forces may be opposed to him, but that does not mean that they are equal to him or greater than him. That does not mean that we should fear them, or that we, certainly not that we should worship them. Rather, we see that Jesus is above all and he is ahead of them. The last phrase then, he's before all things, and in him all things hold together. Jesus is the sustainer and the maintainer of creation. He holds it all together. There's a sense in which this world ceases to exist if Jesus steps away from the table. The world is not like a wind-up toy that God set in motion and now he's left to its own devices. Rather, the Bible insists that Jesus is actively at work in the world to this very day, that he's the one who holds creation together. And it's all in him. It's all through him. It's all for him. Pay attention to all of the prepositions in this verse. It belongs to Jesus. It's comprehensive, his rulership over it. And so, as we look at who Jesus is, we see that he is first over creation, that this world belongs to him. That means you and I, we belong to him. He's truly the Lord to whom we owe our existence and to whom we owe our loyalty. Once again, I want to thank you for watching this video. Your likes and shares help more people to see content like this. If there's something you would appreciate, please share it with others. Eat This Word is made possible by donations and gifts from people like you. And so if you would like to support these videos and other projects that we're working on, you can visit our website at www.eatthisword.com, or you could support us financially at www.patreon.com/eatthisword.